The Lions fumbling the bag. Listen, I think everybody in our Discord was all rooting for the Lions, like hardcore on Sunday night.
So
but
sad.
they were not listening to our cheers, and they let down the city of Detroit and us. So the big question is, why couldn't the Lions hold on to get to the Super Bowl? Keeping it real, we're, of course, going to start with you here.
Well, I mean, I think everyone knows who they directly got to look at, and you got to start with your head coach and Dan Campbell.
Damn right.
Here's the thing. Dan Campbell has been very consistent as to who he wants to be and who he has been as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. With that mindset and with his coaching style, he's been able to turn the Detroit Lions around and get them as far as the NFC Championship game. And it felt like they had it in the bag, which honestly they should have. They came out there early on. They pounced on a Niners team that just did not seem prepared early on to go in that game. The Lions were hitting on every single cylinder. All they had to do was maintain the lead. And it came down to two decisions: going for it instead of taking those field goals. Now, Dan Campbell has established himself as the coach that's always going to be aggressive. We're going to go for those 2-point conversions to try to win the game. We're going to go for it on 4th down instead of taking the points. That is the culture he's established with Detroit. But that's a double-edged sword. If it works, you pretty much put yourself in a position to win. But if it doesn't, it costs you. We saw that exact same situation. Though it was controversial, we saw that exact same situation happen in the Cowboys game. He kept going for 2 and going for 2, even after the penalties happened, which led to them losing. In these situations, you take the points. If they take the points, the Niners are not going to win that game. But instead, he chose to go for it and be overly aggressive. He absolutely is the main reason they lost the game. Because if you take the points as a head coach, in those situations, you win. Now, if the kicker misses the field goal, the first one it wasn't an easy field goal, but the second one, there's no excuse not to take that one. If you take the points there and the kicker just misses, well, now you look at the kicker and say he didn't do his job. But in those situations, to choose to not take the points when you have the lead and you're trying not to blow the lead against a Niners team that's gaining some steam and coming back, to choose not to take the points in those situations, it ultimately costs your team the game. Now, I don't know how Lions fans feel about it. I don't know if they're pissed off in camp. I'm pretty sure they are because, we had a trip to the Super Bowl already lined up and you made that choice. But that's who he's been since he first came to Detroit, and that's the whole nature and culture he's built there. So it was stupid. I'm still pissed off he did that, but it just seemed like he was going to stick to his style, even if it cost him the game, and it certainly did. So I got to look at Dan Campbell 100%. He's to blame. It was a dumb decision. There's a difference between being overly aggressive and just being idiotic. That was an idiotic decision, and it cost them, but that's who he's been when he's with Detroit. And that's who he's going to continue to be as a coach. And they're going to stand by it.
But you have to be able to know when you need to change your philosophy based on situations. And that's the thing that got Dan Campbell in trouble.
Right.
Because it's not about the points. It's about the possessions.
Yeah.
Because they're up. They couldn't score that touchdown at the end of the first half. So they're up 24 to what? 10?
I think it was 10.
10.
7.
So then the Niners go down there and they score a field goal. Okay. So now it's a 2-possession game.
Yeah.
When the Lions had the opportunity to kick a field goal and make it a 3-possession game again, there was 7:23 left in the third quarter. You had like 22 minutes left in the game, and you had an opportunity to make it a 3-possession game again. It's not about points. It's about possessions.
Yeah.
How many possessions do you have at the end of the game? Now, can we anticipate that a Lions defender is going to have a ball bounce off of his face mask and Brandon Ayuk is going to catch it? No. Can we then anticipate that the Lions are going to fumble the football on the very next possession and allow them to...
Yeah.
You can't plan for that.
Right.
There's no way that Dan Campbell at 4th and 2 at the 28 with 7:23 left knows that, well, Brandon Ayuk is going to make this dumbass fucking catch and they were going to fumble the ball again. Like, his offense has still been rolling. Now, he was 73%, okay, on fourth down conversions this year, which is wild.
Yeah.
How do you have 73%? But at the end of the day, you need to be able to read the room and understand the possession game. If you're going through midway through the third quarter and you have the opportunity to put the Niners behind the 8 ball the same amount of points they were going into the half, that's damn near a game breaker. Yeah. Because it's once again, you've wasted over a half of football and you're still down 3 possessions. Yeah. So I do think that was a miscue. Yeah. But then they started reaching once the Niners tied it up.
Right.
And they did it again. Yeah. And I'm angry about it. I'm
Nestor,
upset.
I'm going to go to you next on this one.
Yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, this is the complete opposite of what the Chiefs do. From coaching to defense, offense, you're seeing a complete breakdown of the team in the pivotal moments. Right. Because I think June would agree, he doesn't like that Detroit defense. Besides Hutchinson, everybody else, it's like maybe one or two guys. They're just not very clutch. So
just some guys out there.
Yeah. So, and then when we saw it with the offense, I mean, I think they'll be better next year. Maybe they'll learn from their mistakes because now they have Jahmyr Gibbs and that whole, revelation of having him. But they're not a championship type team, and I'm not surprised this happened at all because we've been talking about that defense for a while. Besides Hutchinson, everybody else. Very suspect. So
how are they not a championship type team?
They are. They showed that they're not. They're not.
They
close.
They're not close. They're 1 quarter away from going to the Super Bowl.
I think they were bound to collapse like this. This is not surprising at all.
Right.
To me,
I want to remind you that you're a Dolphins fan.
I was sort of surprised, but I wasn't too surprised. Only because of their head coach. But
once they were up 24-7, everyone had to be shocked that they didn't win the game.
Right? Yeah, I was surprised, but I wasn't flabbergasted.
You had to bring out.
You know who was flabbergasted?
That's the widest thing you've
86-year-old.
ever said in your life. I've never heard you say flabbergasted.
I'll probably never use it again.
I hope you don't.
June, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say this. Dan Campbell and keeping it real, hit it right on the head. And he showed that you can, when you overcoach in a game, and that's exactly what it is. It's overcoaching. This is a championship game. This isn't a regular season game and you're 8-1. This is a championship game. And you're putting Jared Goff, first of all, was talking about your quarterback, Jared Goff. Okay? You're putting a lot of pressure on the guy who, in clutch situations, is not that guy, first of all. And you putting it on a defense that, like Nestor said, is not that good. So you're putting a lot of pressure on them. And he's done it twice so far. And he's done it in major spots twice. And it's backfired twice on them. And at some point, his coaches have got to sit down with him and say, hey, man, we got to think about this. Because you wasn't playing the Vikings, the Bears, or the Packers. You're playing a team that also has aspirations of going to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you something. San Francisco when they saw an opening, they kicked that door in.
Yeah.
Their coaches said, this is our chance. And they took it. Yeah, they can't anticipate those passes, the great catch by Ayuk and the fumble. They can't predict that. But it could have made it a lot harder for them. If you kick that field goal, and I hope Malin agrees with this, now you're going to put pressure on Brock Purdy to have to press, like Lamar Jackson had to start pressing.
And he didn't play a good game.
Right.
And he did not have a good first. He was terrible average. The first half. man couldn't hit the side of a barn in the first half. It was all Christian McCaffrey keeping him in that
I
game.
don't know why we gotta say barn with white boys, but
Yeah. But
because he's from
Dan
Iowa
Campbell-
State.
Oh God. Dan Campbell did not recognize his team, and he put too much pressure on his quarterback and his defense. And you guys are right, 100% on Dan Campbell. This is his fault. And you talk about a stain on the legacy. This is the stain on the legacy that if the Detroit Lions next year don't make the playoffs, and then for the next 20 years they become the Lions again, we're gonna look at Dan Campbell and say, "See what you did, Matt Millen."
But what do you guys think? But what do you guys think about
See what you
Dan
did,
Campbell
Matt
telling
Patricia?
the team in the locker room, "This was the best shot we had"? Like said, this might be the best shot we have of making the Super Bowl.
I think he was very realistic.
I think, but he's
honest.
keeping everybody.
I mean,
Everybody's staying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just like, damn, Dan. Like, shit. Way to talk the team up going into off-season workouts and free agency.
Good luck.
This was the one chance we had of going to a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter what the fuck we do in the off-season or the draft. When you guys come for OTAs, we ain't going back to the NFC Championship game.
He's already got his Cancun
Like, goddamn.
trip planned
That's
for
crazy.
next January 2025. His Cancun trip is already planned.